JT Kirk says it exists, but it doesn't exist. Okay, so somebody in the chat does want to talk about the time travel stuff. That is a reference to Saturday Night Star Trek quote from Clobberin Times about it was an episode of Deep Space Nine in which they came back to the future. They had messed around in the past, and it was a wacky episode. It wasn't really even that good of an episode, but the way that Clobby depicted the changes in the timeline, it was hilarious. It was the funniest thing ever. The Enterprise C goes back through its own timeline in the past, which is the part that is problematic, because if you're a person who believes that you cannot alter the past of a timeline, then something very sad would have happened in this episode. The C goes through the rift. This is if you think malleable timelines cannot exist in fiction. The C would go through the rift back to the past, but since you can't change the past, they end up in a separate timeline in which there may be a battle. There may not even be a battle happening. You might just find a space circus, or maybe it is. In the case that it is happening, the C ends up helping that timeline develop and maintain peace with the Klingons. But then our friends in the warship Enterprise D will not reap the benefits of the sea going back. So then the entire Federation has now somehow been completely conquered by the Klingons, stated as in the big threat of this episode. If the episode would have ended, we would have had the Enterprise C trying to help with the war that couldn't be won, and everything would collapse. That's not what happened in this episode, so we can be sure that this is not what the authors intended. We know that the authors intended that this is a malleable timeline, so it exists, but it doesn't exist, is exactly what happens here. And so the C is able to go back in time and die in the battle to save diplomatic relations with the Klingons. And I prefer talking about this episode with the author's intent. But, of course, everybody can play with the time travel stuff as much as they like. You can decide that there are multiple timelines.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can enjoy this on your own playing field. If that means that you need graph paper, go for it. I don't.
The episode tells you what it is, too. That they
It
are...
does it visually. It's stunning. It conveys temporal ideas and the idea of changing history in a visual manner. And then you have the character of Guinan trying to explain it from the sidelines, but also being, it just feels wrong. Yo, how does she know? Because Elorians can see through time? Or is it like a vibration of a different timeline that they can hear because they're listeners? What is that? I don't know. Maybe she's Bilbo Baggins.
I don't know. They don't explain that at all. They don't explain the not wormhole. They don't explain Guinan's powers.
I understand the Star Trek fans love getting into the technicals. And I like getting into the technicals. But at a certain point, I do say, but it's a really good story, right? And then it's like, oh yeah.
Yes, but it's a really good story.
And to make sure history never forgets the name Enterprise.